Focus is not something you are born with or something reserved for a gifted few. It is a deliberate choice you make moment by moment. Every day presents countless options competing for your attention, and each one pulls you in a different direction. When you decide what deserves your attention, you are quietly deciding what deserves your energy, your time, and your future. Focus is the act of placing your life's weight behind what truly matters instead of scattering it across distractions that produce no lasting return. Most people believe focus comes after clarity, but in reality, clarity often comes after focus. When you commit your attention to a single direction, confusion begins to dissolve because your mind aligns around a purpose. The moment you stop entertaining endless alternatives and commit to one path, your thinking sharpens. Focus simplifies life by reducing unnecessary choices and replacing them with intentional action that builds momentum. Where your attention goes, your habits follow. Repeated attention creates patterns, and patterns shape identity. When you focus on growth, learning, and improvement, your behavior begins to reflect that priority without force. When your attention drifts toward comfort, distraction, or avoidance, those patterns quietly take root instead. Focus is the invisible architect designing your daily routines and, over time, your character. Attention also determines emotional outcomes. Focusing on obstacles magnifies fear, while focusing on solutions expands confidence. The same circumstance can produce anxiety or determination depending on where your attention rests. By choosing focus intentionally, you train your mind to search for progress rather than problems, allowing resilience to grow even in challenging situations. Focus strengthens discipline by giving it a clear target. Discipline without direction feels like struggle, but discipline fueled by focus feels purposeful. When you know exactly what you are working toward, saying no becomes easier because every distraction is measured against a defined objective. Focus transforms sacrifice into strategy rather than loss. Every meaningful result in life is the product of sustained attention over time. Skills are developed by focusing on practice, businesses grow by focusing on value creation, and personal transformation happens by focusing on daily improvement. Nothing compounds without consistency, and consistency is impossible without focus. The direction of your life is shaped not by dramatic moments, but by where you repeatedly place your attention. Focus also determines what you notice and what you ignore. Your mind cannot process everything, so it filters reality based on your chosen priorities. When you focus on opportunity, you begin to see possibilities others overlook. When you focus on limitations, your mind becomes trained to confirm why progress is impossible. The lens you choose shapes the reality you experience. Choosing focus is an act of self-leadership. It means you no longer allow external noise, opinions, or trends to dictate your priorities. Instead, you become the authority over your own attention. This decision creates stability in an unstable world because your direction is no longer dependent on circumstances, but anchored in intention. Focus requires repetition, not perfection. Minds wander naturally, but mastery comes from gently redirecting attention again and again. Each return strengthens mental control and reinforces commitment. Over time, focus becomes easier not because distractions disappear, but because your decision grows stronger. The outcome of your life is the accumulation of what you consistently think about, work on, and invest energy into. By deciding where your attention belongs, you are deciding the trajectory of your future in small, powerful increments. Every focus moment is a vote cast for the person you are becoming and the results you will eventually experience. Personal transformation begins the moment responsibility is reclaimed from circumstances, people, and past experiences. As long as blame is placed outside of oneself, growth remains delayed because power is given away. Responsibility brings control back into your hands, and with control comes the ability to change direction. When you accept full ownership of your life, you stop waiting for rescue and start becoming the solution. Excuses are often subtle and sound reasonable, which makes them dangerous. They disguise themselves as logic, timing, or fairness, but their true function is to protect comfort and avoid discomfort. Each excuse quietly reinforces the belief that progress is optional rather than necessary. Eliminating excuses exposes the truth that action is always available, even when conditions are imperfect. Reclaiming responsibility does not mean denying hardship or pretending challenges do not exist. It means acknowledging obstacles without allowing them to define your limits. Two people can face the same difficulty and produce entirely different outcomes based on who takes ownership and who looks for justification. Responsibility shifts the question from, "Why is this happening to me?" to "What can I do with what I have?" Transformation accelerates when you realize that no one is coming to do the work for you. Support may appear, guidance may help, and opportunities may arise, but progress still demands personal effort. Waiting for permission, motivation, or perfect clarity delays growth. Responsibility activates movement, and movement creates clarity through experience. Excuses thrive in environments of comparison and expectation. When you expect life to be fair or outcomes to be equal, disappointment becomes fuel for inaction. Letting go of these expectations allows you to focus on what you can influence rather than what you cannot control. Responsibility replaces entitlement with empowerment. When excuses are removed, feedback becomes valuable instead of threatening. Criticism turns into information, and failure becomes instruction. Instead of defending past behavior, you begin refining future action. This mindset shift allows learning to happen faster and progress to become continuous rather than emotional. Taking responsibility also elevates personal standards. You stop negotiating with habits that sabotage your goals because you recognize their cost. Every decision is weighed against the future you want rather than the comfort you want right now. Responsibility creates alignment between intention and action. Excuses often stem from fear of failure, fear of judgment, or fear of change. Removing them requires courage, but that courage builds confidence. Each time you act without excuse, you prove to yourself that you are capable of more than you previously believed. Confidence grows not from thinking differently, but from acting differently. Personal transformation is not a single decision, but a daily practice of ownership. Each morning presents a new opportunity to choose responsibility over reaction. Small choices repeated consistently create powerful shifts in identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who acts, adapts, and advances regardless of circumstances. When responsibility is fully embraced and excuses no longer have a place, progress becomes inevitable. Effort replaces explanation, growth replaces justification, and action replaces intention. The person you become is shaped by what you choose to own and what you refuse to excuse. Distraction slowly erodes progress by fragmenting attention into pieces too small to create meaningful results. Each interruption pulls you out of momentum and forces your mind to restart, draining mental energy that could have been invested in focused effort. When attention is scattered, even long hours of activity produce little movement. Growth requires depth, and depth is impossible when distraction becomes a daily habit. Comparison diverts energy away from self-mastery and redirects it towards self-doubt. When you measure your progress against someone else's timeline, resources, or visibility, you lose sight of your own path. Comparison replaces curiosity with judgment and patience with pressure. Instead of building skill and consistency, attention is wasted monitoring outcomes that have nothing to do with your current assignment. External validation creates a dependency that weakens internal drive. When approval becomes the fuel, action becomes conditional. Progress slows because every move is filtered through the question of how it will be perceived rather than whether it is effective. Growth demands action even when no one is watching, applauding, or approving. Distraction often disguises itself as productivity. Endless consumption of information, planning, or preparation can feel like progress while avoiding execution. This illusion keeps people busy but stagnant. True growth requires the uncomfortable step of applying what you already know, and distraction conveniently delays that step. Comparison also distorts perception of effort and reality. You see the highlights of others without witnessing their struggles, discipline, or failures. This imbalance leads to discouragement or unrealistic expectations. Energy that should be spent refining your craft is instead spent questioning your worth or pace. Seeking validation shifts focus outward rather than inward. Instead of asking how to improve, the mind asks how to impress. This shift compromises quality, integrity, and long-term vision. Sustainable success is built by solving real problems, not by chasing attention or affirmation. When distraction dominates, execution becomes inconsistent. Tasks are started but rarely finished. Ideas are generated but never implemented. Momentum is lost because attention keeps resetting. Execution thrives on continuity, and continuity depends on protected focus. Eliminating comparison allows energy to return to skill development and personal standards. You begin measuring progress against yesterday's effort rather than someone else's results. This creates a healthier rhythm of improvement and reinforces confidence through evidence, not opinion. Releasing the need for validation strengthens internal authority. Decisions become clearer because they are guided by values and goals rather than reactions. This autonomy fuels decisive action and resilience, especially when results take time to appear. When distraction, comparison, and external validation are removed, energy becomes concentrated and powerful. Focus sharpens, execution accelerates, and growth becomes measurable. Progress begins to reflect effort rather than attention given to noise, opinion, and unnecessary influence. Motivation is emotional and temporary, rising and falling based on mood, environment, and circumstance. Discipline operates independently of how you feel, allowing progress to continue even when enthusiasm fades. Long-term success requires systems that function on ordinary days, not just on inspired ones. Discipline creates stability where motivation creates fluctuation. Daily consistency transforms small actions into powerful outcomes over time. What seems insignificant in a single day becomes extraordinary when repeated without interruption. Consistency removes the pressure to make dramatic moves and replaces it with steady execution. Progress becomes predictable because effort is no longer dependent on excitement. Discipline simplifies decision-making by eliminating internal debate. When actions are predetermined, energy is conserved for execution rather than negotiation. This clarity prevents procrastination and reduces mental fatigue. Discipline creates a framework where action becomes automatic instead of optional. Motivation often arrives after progress, not before it. Waiting to feel ready delays action, while disciplined action creates readiness through movement. As results begin to appear, motivation follows as a byproduct rather than a prerequisite. Discipline leads and motivation responds. Consistency builds trust with yourself. Every completed action reinforces the belief that you are reliable and capable. This internal trust strengthens confidence more effectively than external praise. Over time, identity shifts from someone who tries to someone who finishes. Discipline also compounds skill development. Repeated practice refines ability, sharpens judgment, and increases efficiency. Talent becomes less relevant as experience accumulates. Consistency ensures that learning does not reset but continues to build layer upon layer. Motivation thrives on novelty, but success thrives on repetition. The willingness to do familiar, sometimes boring work separates achievers from spectators. Discipline sustains effort when novelty fades and routine becomes the primary requirement. Mastery is achieved through repetition, not excitement. Daily consistency protects momentum. Gaps in effort create friction, making it harder to restart. Discipline minimizes these gaps by maintaining rhythm even when progress feels slow. Momentum grows quietly through uninterrupted action. Discipline aligns behavior with long-term vision rather than short-term emotion. It prioritizes future reward over immediate comfort. This alignment allows progress to continue despite uncertainty or delay. Consistent discipline keeps direction intact even when outcomes are not immediately visible. Long-term success is built through the accumulation of disciplined days, stacked together without dependence on mood or circumstance. Each day's effort reinforces the next, creating a self-sustaining cycle of execution, growth, and reliability that continues to produce results over time. Every result you experience is first created in the invisible realm of identity before it appears in the visible world of outcomes. Actions do not exist in isolation. They flow naturally from how you see yourself. When your internal identity shifts, behavior adjusts automatically, and results begin to align without force. External success is not something you chase, it is something you express. Most people attempt to change results without changing identity, which leads to frustration and inconsistency. They try new strategies, habits, and routines, but revert under pressure because the internal self-image remains unchanged. Identity acts like a thermostat, pulling behavior back to what feels familiar. Lasting transformation requires resetting that internal standard. Your identity is shaped by repeated thoughts, decisions, and behaviors. What you consistently tell yourself about who you are becomes the lens through which you interpret reality. Over time, this internal narrative influences what you attempt, what you avoid, and what you believe is possible. Identity quietly governs ambition and effort. When you see yourself as disciplined, disciplined actions feel natural. When you see yourself as capable, challenges feel solvable rather than threatening. The mind seeks alignment between belief and behavior, so actions tend to confirm identity. This is why changing identity produces more reliable results than relying on willpower alone. External achievements often plateau when internal growth stops. You can only outperform your identity for so long before self-sabotage appears. Missed opportunities, inconsistency, or fear of expansion often signal an identity that has not yet caught up to potential. Growth resumes when the internal self-image is upgraded. Identity also determines standards. What you tolerate, accept, or settle for is a direct reflection of how you value yourself. Higher identity produces higher standards, and higher standards lead to better decisions. This chain reaction quietly shapes outcomes without requiring constant motivation. Becoming precedes achieving. The person who consistently produces results has aligned thoughts, habits, and expectations with the outcome they desire. This alignment creates ease in execution because actions are no longer forced. Results emerge as a natural consequence of who you are becoming. Identity influences how you respond to setbacks. When failure is seen as feedback rather than a verdict, resilience increases. A strong identity allows learning without self-judgment. This ability to adapt accelerates progress and strengthens long-term outcomes. Internal identity also affects how others respond to you. Confidence, clarity, and consistency are felt before they are proven. People trust, follow, and support those whose identity is grounded and stable. External opportunities often mirror internal alignment. As identity evolves, results follow with less resistance. Actions become consistent, decisions become clearer, and effort becomes more focused. The external world eventually reflects the internal shift that has already taken place, confirming that who you become always determines what you achieve. A simplified vision removes confusion and concentrates energy into a single direction. When goals are clear and uncluttered, the mind no longer wastes effort deciding what matters most. Simplicity creates focus, and focus creates movement. Progress accelerates when attention is no longer divided among competing priorities. Quiet action allows work to develop without the pressure of performance or approval. When actions are taken without announcement, energy stays invested in execution rather than explanation. Silence protects momentum by eliminating distraction and unnecessary feedback. Growth happens fastest when effort is consistent and uninterrupted. Repeated action turns intention into reality. One effort rarely changes anything, but repetition compounds results. Each small action builds on the last, strengthening skill, confidence, and efficiency. Over time, repetition transforms ordinary effort into extraordinary outcomes. Momentum is created through consistency, not intensity. Large bursts of effort followed by inactivity produce little progress. Quiet, repeated action maintains rhythm and keeps progress moving forward. Momentum thrives when effort becomes habitual rather than emotional. A simplified vision also reduces overwhelm. When the path is clear, the next step becomes obvious. This clarity removes hesitation and encourages action. Progress feels manageable because complexity has been replaced with direction. Working quietly shifts focus inward, strengthening discipline and self-trust. Without external applause, effort becomes intrinsic. This internal motivation sustains action even when results are not immediately visible. Confidence grows from keeping commitments rather than receiving recognition. Repeated action builds resilience. Each attempt strengthens the ability to persist despite setbacks. Mistakes become adjustments rather than stopping points. Momentum grows as resistance decreases through familiarity and experience. Simplicity allows measurement. When goals are clear, progress is easier to track. Small wins become visible, reinforcing consistency. This feedback loop strengthens commitment and sustains effort over time. Quiet execution prevents comparison. Without broadcasting progress, attention remains on personal standards rather than external opinions. This protects momentum from doubt and distraction. Progress continues steadily without interference. As simplified vision guides repeated action, momentum becomes self-sustaining. Effort requires less force, direction becomes natural, and progress compounds. Success emerges not as a surprise, but as the predictable outcome of clarity, consistency, and disciplined execution.